Buddhism spread and blossomed even during the Buddha's lifetime. His teachings about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path were practical pointers to a righteous spiritual life, attracting people to the new faith. As was the practice established by the Buddha, the monks traveled through villages and towns, seeking alms and preaching Dhamma, keeping to the established trade routes that spanned the country. During the monsoon, they remained indoors within the various monasteries, discussing, debating, and meditating. These monasteries were built with devotion and are considered monuments of art. They are the only remnants of the Buddhist age that give us an idea of its splendor and purity. Maharashtra is host to many Buddhist cave sites that still fascinate thousands of visitors, transporting them to an age of pure and ascetic faith. The art of cave sculpture had traveled long before it touched India, coming from Greece and Persia and reaching Gandhar, Magad, and influencing the marble carvings of Rajasthan. It was the Shatavahanas who brought it to Maharashtra's Deccan Plateau. The caves were constructed conveniently along the trade routes of the Konkan and western Maharashtra, the Marathwada and Vidarbha regions. Geographically, the cave clusters can be classified under three groups. The first group, located around Nasik, include caves near Aurangabad. The 14 Pitalkhora Caves, which date back to the 2nd century BC, are located about 40 kilometers away from the Ellora Caves in Aurangabad. They are one of the earliest centers of rock-cut architecture. The complex contains a group of viharas, a chaitya hall, and two smaller caves with stupas across the gorge. The cave sculptures include animal motifs, miniature chaitya windows, elephants, and guardians' figures, as well as yakshas. The chaitya halls contain beautiful paintings, some of which are still preserved. Ajanta. The jewel among these sites is undoubtedly the world-famous string of Ajanta Caves, one among the world's oldest monasteries. They faded into obscurity for centuries until they were rediscovered by some British soldiers in the 19th century. The 29 Ajanta Buddhist caves were excavated from volcanic rock under the supervision of master architects. The paintings within the caves originated over a period of many centuries, from 200 BC to 728 AD. They are legendary and more famous than the architecture and sculpture in these caves. The murals here trace the transition when the rigid Theravada ideals gradually gave way to the Mahayana form of Buddhism. The themes of the paintings vary. They depict the different incarnations of the Bodhisattva, scenes from the Jataka tales, and also purely secular portraits showing ordinary life and scenes from the court. The caves sparkle with the representations from the high point of artistic creativity of the 5th and 6th centuries. Taking over ceilings, pillars, and walls of the caves, they go on to portray scenes from the Buddha's life, along with floral and animal motifs. Truly a marriage of art and devotion, the Ajanta paintings preach the gospel of the Buddha, silently carrying on the hoary legacy of the monks who lived, worked, and worshipped here centuries ago, when the caves must have resonated with a gentle whisper of prayer and a hard clatter of chisel on rock. The sculptures here blend with its enveloping architecture. Created in the tradition of North and South Indian art, they carry an imaginative strain from the Deccan school of sculpture. This school flourished under the Satavahana dynasty that ruled the Deccan for 4 centuries from the 2nd century BC. Ellora. In the 7th century, the artists relocated and resumed their artistic pursuits. This appears to have been an unexpected and mysterious development. But historians suggest that the move away from Ajanta was probably because the trade route had moved away, taking with it the merchants who funded the work on the caves. And thus began the era of Ellora, then known as Virul. Ellora does not confine itself to Buddhist caves alone. It also has Hindu and Jain caves, and are carved out of a rock face that runs north to south for about 2 kilometers. However, though there are 34 cave temples in Ellora, only 12 of them are Buddhist. And even these Buddhist temples use a lot of Hindu and Jain themes as well. Much later, towards the end of the 20th century, more caves were discovered in the area, and they all contained Hindu sculptures. The Ellora cave temples include the magnificent Kailash temple, whose volume is double that of the Greek Parthenon in Athens. It is probably the largest monolithic structure in the world. The rock face of Ellora is not as steep as the one in Ajanta. Taking advantage of this, the makers of the temples indulged in complex architectural exploits, resulting in a spectacular series of shrines. Besides these, they also contain monasteries, multi-storied buildings carved into the mountain with living quarters, kitchens, and other rooms. In many of them, stone has been sculpted to deliberately suggest a semblance of wood. Today, it is possible to stand in these caves and conjure up images of the lives the monks must have led, the dreams they must have dreamt. In the year 1983, this splendid tribute to the art and culture of a departed era, these rugged caves that merge the talents of nature and man and encapsulate the flow of a 1,000-year history, were declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Kanheri Caves. On the western outskirts of Mumbai are situated more than 100 caves dating back to the 2nd century BC. They are known as the Kanheri Caves. Situated deep within the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, these caves had originally been carved out of the rock as inns and settlements for travelers. However, the monks found its quiet location ideal for a retreat of meditation and prayer. One of the biggest Buddhist dwellings on the Konkan coast, the Kanheri Caves, came to be considered a key Buddhist site during the Mauryan and Kushan times. The highest of them looks down from a height of 1,500 feet above sea level. The caves contain stone benches and beds and are decorated with carvings of the Buddha. The word Kanheri is derived from Krishnagiri, which means Black Mountain in Sanskrit. During the early days, Shurparak or Sopara, Kalyan and Erangal were important ports that communicated and traded with Greece and Mesopotamia. Sopara, now known as Nala Sopara, was a port from which Emperor Ashoka's children travelled to Ceylon, now known as Sri Lanka. Travellers going from one port to the other rested in the inns located here before continuing on their journey. Kanheri also had been a flourishing university centre during this time. But soon the monks moved in. The place was ideally located, not too far from towns like Sopara, Kalyan, Nasik and Ujjain, and yet isolated and tranquil. There was also adequate water for the monks. The caves started out as sparse wayside inns with their stone beds and cisterns to store water. But after the monks came in, they carved out halls and started embellishing the place with fine statues of the Buddha and intricate sculptures on the walls. The sculptures of Avalokiteshvara and the goddesses Tara and Brukti stand out among these brilliant artistic creations. The Chaitya cave, dating back to the 4th century AD, with its vestiges of ornamental woodwork on the roof and its 34 pillars, is equally fascinating. Karle Caves. The Karle Caves, another remarkable landmark on the old trading route. Situated off the Mumbai-Pune road, about 11 kilometers from Lonavala, these caves date back to the 2nd century BC. Karle is famous for its chaitya or prayer hall. An inscription inside the cave describes it as the most outstanding rock-cut hall in Jambudvipa, which is an ancient name for India. The cave was excavated by Bhutapa, a merchant from the ancient city of Vaijayanti. Welcoming visitors at the entrance to the Chaitya Hall stands a huge pillar more than 15 meters in height. Its lion capitals are reminiscent of the Ashoka pillar at Sarnath. The walls outside are alive with carvings of couples and elephants. Other symbols depicted on the Karle cave walls include the lotus, the Bodhi tree, and the wheel of law which the Buddha set in motion in Sarnath. Among the wonders of Karle are a stone stupa and 37 pillars carved with the figures of men and women seated on kneeling elephants paying homage to the Buddha. Its domed ceiling made of oak is 2,000 years old but appears as good as new. Karle presents one of the best examples of ancient Buddhist art and architecture. The somber play of light and shade through a strategically structured window adds to the ambience that harks back to the hours of prayer and contemplation spent by the devoted monks who lived there so many centuries ago. Bhaje Caves. The 18 rock-cut Bhaje Caves, dating back to the 2nd century BC, are supposed to have been built for Buddhist nuns. The last cave to the south has some fine sculpture, including a prince seated on an elephant, a prince in a chariot, and 3 armed figures. The dancing couple is also a famous piece of sculpture. These caves are as old as Karle Caves, near which they are located. It stands on a major trade route that runs from the Arabian Sea eastward into the Deccan in a region between North and South India. Interestingly, this tendency to carve out cave temples from the stubborn facades of mountainsides started in India. When the Buddhist monks traveled far and wide spreading Buddhism, they also introduced other Asian countries to this unique manner of temple building. Thus, their legacy included an architectural contribution as well. It would be interesting to note that there are over 1,500 rock-cut caves spread all over India. A majority of them are Buddhist caves, and our journey has just begun in learning and experiencing this fascinating period of faith and vision.